My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireball's Dispatch, our monthly Q&A topics sometimes. Listener response game announcement episode.
Yeah, the chute is full. It's overflowing. So we're going to be doing some, we're going to be doing a bunch of questions this time.
Everybody comes out in force.
Yeah, which is the best problem to have.
It's a really nice problem to have. Why don't you get us started here with Andrew?
I will. Andrew says, I find myself playing and enjoying more short or simple games. I love complex games like Paradox Studios games, and I was playing Civilization 1, and I had Civ 1 strategy books even, before Civ 2 even came out. But now I lean more towards shorter and simpler games. For example, Vampire Survivors or Balatro or Into the Breach. Or if I play a longer, more complex game, I feel no shame in stopping and never touching it again after only experiencing like 30% of what the game has to offer. Do you find the same or hear others have a similar story? Why is it? And they go on to post some kind of explanations, relating like possibilities for why they might feel this way, number of games coming out, the prevalence of really long, high-profile games, change of responsibilities as you grow up,
getting older,
stuff like that. Yeah.
This is going to cop out a little bit. By no means are Cole and I normal about this because of our job.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Like that's my answer for this, because it's like there's the answer that if I were in Gen Pop thinking about it, but my play is really, really shaped by what we do for the show.
It's really
like what we might do for the show.
Yep, precisely. It's super structured by that, and what that has given me is not so much just because like it's been the majority of my adult life, so I'm acclimated to it. And if I didn't like it, I would change. But also I outright reject that any kind of that it is your obligation at all to change the way you play games for the expectations of somebody else.
When you start thinking about that, ask yourself who the somebody else is.
Yeah.
And the answer is nothing. Like you're going to imagine it's going to look like the mystery judge on the briefcase, Deal or No Deal.
Yeah.
Or the Baby of the Year.
Yeah.
It's going to look like a silhouette with a question mark in it, because there's nobody cares. It's like a past version of yourself.
Yeah. And you're not beholden to your past self. You might be beholden to some like long-term sticky decisions you made, but like your appetites change and you go through seasons and stuff, right? Like I'm playing more games for fun, and the games that I'm playing for fun now, they're like long-term project games, My Summer Car, Satisfactory, RimWorld kind of thing, because that's what I'm hungry for, right?
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with my concept of myself or what I did before.
Yeah. See, and if it weren't for the show, like if it wasn't doing show stuff, I would, probably have wrapped up my honor mode Baldur's Gate 3 and would probably be pretty deep in Avowed right now, if I had to guess. But it's okay. That's the other thing, is that I'll get to it eventually, and it's fine. That's the part of this that warped that's warped by the show. It's like, well, someday we'll probably do Avowed. Yeah. Like next year, not this year, but maybe next year. I don't know. We'll see. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I think that is fairly common. I think people who just kind of walk away after 30% of the game, I think people do that, but very few people do it happily. Like people tend to beat themselves up over that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I get it. I like to beat a game if I'm going to play 30% of it, just because I want to see the whole thing. But I usually don't get to 30% unless I want to, as a thing. So I don't think you're alone.
No.
It's probably fairly common, but I would not worry about it.
Yeah. It does not benefit, or you don't benefit by beating yourself up about that. I don't think you are. I just think that if that is a thing about yourself that's curious, I think it's just the shape of your life changes, and the shape of the games and other recreation that fits into it changes too.
Yeah. James says, "Hey guys, I've been catching up on Real the Towers now that I've gotten around to starting Baldur's Gate 3, and I love your discussion on legacy dungeons that you had during your Act 2 coverage. I was curious to hear your thoughts on the intersection of more level-based immersive sim games and legacy dungeons. While there are more standout traditional legacy dungeon levels, i.e. the Clockwork Mansion, Dishonored 2, or Sapienza in Hitman, the structure of these games seem to lead to more of an oops, all legacy dungeons format. Is there a differentiation in those that style of games that you can point to where you can say this is a legacy dungeon while this is not? Thanks for all the great content you have provided all over the years.
This is asking us to elaborate on a definition of something that we laid out 6 months ago?
Quite a while ago, and also it was pretty loose.
Yes.
I don't think legacy dungeon is vibe based.
Yeah.
As a thing, I mean,
we said prestige dungeon, I think is what it was.
Yeah, we might have said prestige dungeon.
Yeah.
As that. Yeah. As the term, like we defined vaguely what we meant, but it is a little bit vibes based. Mm-hmm. Like in something like Hitman 2, almost everything is a big detailed space. Mm-hmm. Prestige dungeon can't just be big detailed space because that's what the genre is.
Yeah.
But if somebody was like, no, this feels like that to me, like it's interesting calling out Sapienza to that. Because I was thinking about the Hitman series, and like there are levels where I feel like, I'm like, no, that doesn't count. Like that train level.
Oh yeah.
That's not a prestige level. Mm-hmm. Or even like, the compound, the militant compound, or even the suburbs, which is maybe my favorite level. Yeah. That is so many small discrete spaces. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like a single defined kind of location like that. If you're wanting for something to differentiate those, that might be it. Mm-hmm. So like Clockwork Mansion, yes. Yeah. It's a big building. Dust District, no. It's a bunch of houses and apartments.
Yeah. It's like what counts as one of those in like Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Because that is such a weird mixture, and the stuff that is most memorable from that is just the Prague. It's just a city you're in.
Yeah. I think having a unifying kind of vision or tone to it, like a sense of single authorship, might be a defining factor if we're going to do like the Habsburg like definition of prestige dungeon. Yeah. So I started out saying we couldn't answer this, and then we just answered it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the answer. Mm-hmm. Those don't count.
But that's fine. Yeah. Chris writes, hey guys, listening to you was a big part of inspiring me to get into Souls games, but it was also part of inspiring me to get into cats. Both of these have obviously improved my life, but cats do not mix well with games without a proper pause function. They sense my tension and have a tendency to climb or jump on me just when things are heating up. I've chalked up a lot of cat-related deaths on Soulsborne games. How do your little ones fit in with your gaming?
Yeah. The first time I read that sentence, it sounded like cats were dying from Souls games.
Oh,
and
no.
Like, it sounded really sad. I was thinking about that Simpsons where Snowball keeps dying.
Yeah, we'll just call you Snowball too.
Yeah, God, if you're going to keep killing our cats, we're not making things for your bake sale. Uh-huh. My cats generally don't hang out with me when I'm gaming. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if I'm in bed gaming, they'll lay on me. Mm-hmm. But both my cats are not like needy laptop, get on my keyboard cats currently. Yeah,
pretty much the same for me. If I am gaming in the living room, they tend to flop on the couch and just kind of watch and hang out. Mm-hmm. If I am gaming if I'm playing games in my office, like at my desk playing, fragging. Yeah. Yes. If I'm improving my KDR, sure. Then they generally are not around, or they're again just kind of laying around watching. They're not hopping up. It's weird. Greta gets needy when I'm sitting at the computer, like working on stuff that is not recording. She will sit not like directly in front of the keyboard, but like so close to the mouse that it is impossible to move it without running into her. She just kind of wants her butt to just like gently be touching my wrist, but that's about it.
Yeah. Jessica will get up on me while I'm recording sometimes, but just Jessica whims. Mm-hmm. Usually does not happen when I'm working.
Yeah. How that plays with with a pause button or whatever, or attributing stuff to your, to souls, like, or deaths to your cats. I don't know. That's a good excuse to have.
Yeah. Look, back in the day, it's funny. It's kind of a thing where like playing all the Souls games now, it's pretty rare that a lack of a pause button will actually fuck me up anymore.
I'm just used to it.
Like I'm really used to it. So I just kind of I feel like I know areas where I'm not going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And it's a thing where that has happened at the exact same curve as me falling out of love with the idea of lacking a pause button. Like early on, I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Like this does add a lot of tension. And now I'm a little bit like, that's a little bit artificial. I feel a little bit less impressed by that, you know, in my old age. And now it bothers me less.
Yeah.
Which I bet you there's something there. Like the fact that it bothered me before made it feel like it would serve a purpose. And now that it doesn't bug me, it's like, this just seems pointless.
Yeah.
But you could always just go back to the PlayStation menu or the Xbox menu or whatever. Like there was always a pause.
Yeah.
You know, you could also just quit out the game. That's a pause if you need to as well.
Yeah. And like Elden Ring, we know that there's a way to pause it by going into the map options or whatever. We know.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah. I don't think the no pausing meta will be long for this world.
Yeah.
In games. It'll be a long refractory period before somebody brings that back and is lauded for it, I think.
Yeah. I think especially as like invasions get less common, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fermented Sorcerer, which is a good username, says, howdy. I just got a hold of a working PS2, and now I can engage in the PS2 and PS1 library with adult money. There's so much I never got to play when I was a kid, and there's so much I did play that sucks now. I'm saving up to get copies of the Kingsfield series, but other than that, I'm not sure what to ask for. The question I keep asking myself, and the question I want to ask y'all is this. With so many old games getting retrofitted onto new systems and emulation getting better, is it worth it to have the original copies of retro games on their original consoles? Is there anything special about it? Is it worth all the damn money? Thank you for your time.
You decide what things are worth to you?
Yeah. People who dig that, like I have records. The comparison I always have is vinyl. I have vinyl records. The difference for me between putting that on, which is decidedly less convenient than firing up Apple Music, is to go through a little ritual.
Yep.
Of intentionality. You get to decide if that has value to you and how much value it has to you.
Yes.
You know,
to have that not be a cop out, like I think it depends on how far you're willing to go with it. Like to me, having the physical copy of the game, you know, just for me, I'm happy that I've held on to all of my old game stuff because I like having those reminders of, you know, old times when I played them. But like the idea of like plugging a PlayStation 1 or a PlayStation 2 into my fucking 4K television and having it be all stretched out is actually not that appealing. I'd almost rather play it in an emulator to have save states at that point. But like if you're in a position where you can get like a nice, you know, one of those Sony monitors that everybody lusts over, or even just a shitty CRT that you can get secondhand or whatever, and you are, you know, sitting down and making it into a ritual, you know, like, okay, yes, I am making it into this. I am playing it in the display and as much of the environment as the original, then I can absolutely see the appeal of it. But I also, to me, the game is the game. The box is not the game to a huge degree.
Yeah. Like I am much more the experience, the elemental essence of the experience first with things. It's interesting. You can kind of shape. I feel like this is a way that people could use to kind of self-shape their gaming. Like if I had a PS2 set up and went through the work of setting it up and buying some games, that would be a way to limit how many games I could play and like call my shot. Like for a couple of months, I'm going to play this style of game.
Yeah.
You know, from this era. And I can see the value in that, you know, and that being a good argument for physical things. Like I want to play some Game Boy style games. I want to make sure I do it. I don't want to be tempted, you know, and other things. Let's get out the Game Boy.
Yeah.
You know, like as kind of a way, but with in terms of actually, to me, that is the value. The value are all ineffables, which does not mean that they're not valuable. It's again, kind of a cop out. Like it's up to you.
Yeah.
If it helps you, that's great. You know?
Do you follow Aiden Mower on Blue Sky?
I do.
Yeah. I love their close-up shots of old games on CRT. Like
it's nice looking.
It's very nice. It's a nice little injection.
Shout out to Jeremy Parrish's like life work.
Oh yeah, true.
Life's work of doing that. Like Jeremy's YouTube channel of not only kind of showcasing that stuff, but also showcasing the ephemera of the boxes and everything, getting high quality photographs.
Yeah.
And such. I'm really glad that he's doing it. And I can appreciate it. It's just for me, like I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
You know, Jeremy does it.
Yeah. Jeremy has built the fucking baffling infrastructure to make that happen. Yeah.
I got a parish for that. Yeah.
God, just the complete morass of like adapters that he runs with in order to do that is wild.
Yeah. It's real neat.
Yeah. Andrew writes, I grew up with console and PC games. It wasn't until I was an adult and had access to a free-to-play version of the Twilight Zone pinball machine at a work office that I fell in love and discovered just how damn fun some pinball games can be. Fast forward to today, listening to the WAF Dispatch Strategy Guides episode, and you guys are chatting a bit about pinball machines. Sounds like at the time you had dabbled but not done a deep dive into the space. Any further pinball exposure since then? Any desire to do anything pinball related since? If it's a different enough medium, no seems like a reasonable answer. But I could also imagine something like a single episode or segment talking about the highs and lows of that medium and how any of it might relate to video games. Oh, and an obligatory shout out to Next Level Pinball here in the greater Portland area. Truly a magical place.
Best arcade in the world.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. That I've been to. I haven't been to every arcade in the world. You're in luck, possibly. We did a pinball episode. It was for our live. It was for Duckfest. And in preparation of that, we both went as deep into pinball as we've gone.
Yes.
We both played a lot of pinball. We both like pinball.
Yep.
I like pinball a lot. I've got a little arcade one-up, like modded electronic pinball table, which is a methadone source of pinball in my house. It's not as good, but it's still fun. And you get a wide variety of tables without having to do the mechanical upkeep.
Yes.
Of that kind of thing. I like pinball quite a bit. I'm still not good at it. I'm okay at some tables.
Yes. Yeah. Like I can do pretty good at Medieval Madness. Right.
Yeah. Have you seen, Cole, the Dungeons and Dragons table that just came out?
No, I have not.
There is a sizzle reel on YouTube for it.
Okay.
It seems like both one of the coolest and most complicated, quest-based pinball machines I've ever seen. Just give it a search.
I can never wrap my head around that.
I mean, I could if I owned it, and they're directly marketing it. They're not saying go to the arcade and play this in a loud arcade. They're saying hey, do you want this in your house? And the answer is yes. I just don't want to spend $5,000 on it. Or whatever, but it's fucking sick. It is a good looking thing and it looks neat. Watch the sizzle reel for it.
Yeah. Huh. Oh yeah, that does look neat. We'll probably get a chance
incredible.
To see that. Yeah.
Full voice acting and all kinds of weird stuff that you would not expect. But pro pinball. I don't know if a new pinball episode would have much content. Yeah. Additional content in it.
But yeah, go check that out. The recording quality is not great because we're working with live, but it's there.
Yeah. Eric says, the scariest arcade game for me as a kid was the new Addams Family electric shock machine. I think it's about the loosest interpretation of the word game possible. It's a giant cabinet with a grotesque plastic fester facsimile. And the whole point of the game is to hold on to two metal handles while you're gently shocked and see how long you can hold on. As a kid, the cabinet and the thought that this machine was somehow recklessly electrocuting people always terrified me and made me stay far away from this monstrosity. Do you have any experience with this game or other bizarre non-game money wasters? I've done this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've shaken the festering hand.
I've held on to Fester's painful rod.
It vibrates.
Yeah, that's the thing that's really fun about that is it is like emulating the pain of holding on to something that shocks you just by vibrating super fast in a way that enervates you. Yeah.
Yes. This reminds me of those boxing games or that Nintendo arm wrestling game. That's incredible. That has the incredible animations that looks like it's in the Punch Out, world. Or those things, how fast can you punch this, this ball bag?
Yeah.
This punching. I don't know what the word for that kind of bag is. Yeah. A punching something.
Yeah, like a headache bag, like a speed bag,
a punching bag.
Yeah,
I just made a joke. Hitting one of those things, it's like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
game as endurance.
It's a little endurance test. It's an electronic novelty. Yeah, we had one of these at the arcade in the mall in Ontario, Ohio, where I grew up. And yeah, it was real fun to just walk up to that with a bunch of your friends and, make fun of the person who couldn't last very long. Sometimes it was me.
Yeah, it's not pleasant.
No.
Like, something that's very unpleasant and doesn't hurt. Fester.
Yeah.
What do you think about moving on to other types of questions? We have a lot of media questions as well.
We do have a lot of media questions. Yeah.
Let's skip over to life and
let's graze a little bit in life and then go to media questions.
Yeah.
Is this me or you?
This is you.
I'm going to try my best at this. Tautvitus asks, Gary, has Cole helped you with something house related? What's the biggest task that he helped you with?
That is an oddly specific question.
Uh-huh.
You bought me a dartboard.
Mm-hmm.
That was very nice.
Yeah.
And you got me a housewarming gift of Chernobyl liquor.
I did.
That was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the main things I think you helped house related. I think that you probably were available or offered advice for the buying process, but we already got Sherpas for that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to discount any of your knowledge, but I had a real estate agent and a mortgage broker recommended by close friends of ours who were great.
Yeah. And I'd rather you get help from them than
somebody local
than me. Yeah.
I feel like they might know a little bit more about Portland realty than
me.
Than you. Yeah. So I think that'd probably be the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That and just like that was a rough process for you. Like there were close calls and false starts
Stressful.
and stuff. So it was, having been through that, it was, I felt like my, what felt good about that to me was just being there to like commiserate, I guess. So
yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
Hayden says, "Hey, Duckheads, I've been listening to the back catalog of Dispatch episodes. Hate my job." Parenthetical. This is a great response. Gary said a while ago that his favorite sandwich is a banh mi. Mine too. I live in Melbourne, Australia, so we have a large Vietnamese population and a lot of different banh mi to pick from, but I'll always go for the classic crispy pork. Gary, please enlighten me. Thanks, guys. You're both the best. There's no question in that.
Nope.
I'm assuming it's which banh mi do you like?
Yeah.
I like, so I cannot fuck with the classic, the traditional one that has pate.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, pate on it. I don't dig on pate. So I will usually do a crispy pork, like a crispy pork belly, or a just a barbecue pork, like the sisu pork.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, pork. A pork banh mi is good.
Pork. Breakfast banh mi is good too. I've had that a couple times. It's just like egg.
Oh, okay.
And that's quite good.
I can see that being really good. Did they change the vegetables on it, or?
Nope, it's all the same things, just with egg as the protein. That's real tasty.
What's Cinder Elf say?
Cinder Elf says whatever you want them to say.
Whatever I want them to say, yeah. Sorry, that got awkward because I was waiting for you to go. And then, Cinder Elf says, Cole, you recently mentioned that you were part of the anonymous Scientology leak over 10 years ago and even got interviewed about it. Please tell us as much as you are comfortable with about both circumstances around the leak and the interview. I understand if you're not comfortable talking about that on the public feed, but I could listen to a story about that for at least an hour. This is in reference to the recent Quack Stack where, Gary, you talked about reading Going Clear.
Yes.
I was not involved in the leak. I was specifically involved in helping to organize kind of a local chapter of Anonymous. This was like in 2008, 2009, around the very woefully named Project Chanology. This was, before Anonymous and everything got weird. It was just, there was this massive groundswell that I got into through reading about Scientology on the Something Awful forums. And I was like, oh, this seems like this seems like a worthwhile cause to put my time into. The Church of Scientology commits very bad abuses, and trying to raise attention to that, especially before like Leah Remini kind of came out and became a very public voice that made a lot of those stories much more kind of mainstream. So like I was not central to anything. I just kind of like helped organize some protests at the Cincinnati Scientology org when that was still there. It was fun. Got to meet a lot of people. It was not all maladjusted like 4chan nerds, like it would eventually kind of become. Pretty diverse set of backgrounds. Like we had a couple of moms who were just heartbroken over the stories of like families being broken up by it and stuff, who were there. Some like real old head, kind of gray beard tech guys too, who were involved. And yeah, it was just like picking times and, organizing communication to try and raise awareness for it. The interview was just the news came out to, do a story about it. And I was the person who had experience with media and speaking who was comfortable and confident enough to like appear in shades and a hat. Not like Heisenberg. It was winter. So it was like a winter hat and just some sunglasses. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole thing's very funny. And Gwen and I deserve a medal for not making fun of you more for that.
Yep.
Like it's undeniably a cool thing to do. Mm-hmm. Like a good moral thing to do.
Yeah.
But the idea of like joining Anonymous and getting the hat and the mask and stuff.
Uh-huh.
I kind of wish that had come up during Sonic 3. I think that you might have been sitting on a whale shamrock, like sequel a little bit. Because it's just very funny. Like imagine me like putting on sunglasses and doing something secret on the internet, like a little spy versus spy.
Yeah, no, just like all of us went by pseudonyms.
Yeah, you had a code name. Mr. Robot. Like, that shit's funny.
It's very funny.
Even though now, because Cinder Elf had you talk about this, David Miscavige is going to fucking grand slam you.
It's been forever.
Drop kick you into a bleacher.
If they are, super mad about something that was done 17 years ago, then that is, I think, on them.
They have infinite time to get back at us.
I suppose. Yeah.
1 billion years is nothing.
Yeah.
Moving on to media questions here. Ingrid says, there is a D in there. Hopefully I'm not mispronouncing it. Mm-hmm. Hey folks, question for Gary. What are your favorite Flying Nun artist records memories? We chatted a bit in the Slack around the same time that Hamish Kilgore passed. Rest in peace. Interested to hear your thoughts and experiences, and if you're keeping up with any of the newer artists. Aldous Harding especially. Thanks. I'm not keeping up with any of the newer artists. I should. Mm-hmm. This is going to make me seem like a poser and a dabbler, because I got into Flying Nun from a compilation.
Okay.
But it's also, to be fair, like music not from the United States or Britain is not very popular here and wasn't very popular here growing up. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get exposure. My two favorite are the Chills and the Clean. But I like the Verlaines a lot. I like, this is going to make me sound, again, also like Go Left, Look Purple. Look Purple, Go Left. I'm trying to remember the exact name. I got that record. That's good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are a couple different bands, but generally, the one I've gone the deepest on is the Chills. I've listened to every Chills record. I love the Chills. I've seen them live like 3 times. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love the Chills. And I should check out Aldous Harding. Yeah, love New Zealand music.
I have nothing to add.
No. What does Jay say?
Jay says, hey, y'all. I noticed recently that I have a weird habit when I'm plumbing the archives of any new podcasts. I get picky about selecting episodes recorded prior to 2020, and rarely listen further back than November 2016. Those poor, beautiful creatures. Some part of my subconscious thinks about the hosts. Their innocent minds know not the horrors to come. Am I the only person who gets like this? Am I floating alone in a terrible void of self-soothing folly? Anyway, the new multi-show Patreon feeds are a delight. Thank you for all your great work. Thank you.
Yeah. I sometimes think about that, but it doesn't influence any of my choices. Mm-hmm. Like if I hear myself before that, or if I see, like me and my wife were watching 30 Rock. Now, I had never done a full watch of it. And like, that is some Obama era hope.
Yeah.
Going on in there for a lot of that. And then also like, Bush era, NBC style parody, soft parody stuff. But like it just feels like from a different time. Mm-hmm. It is sad to think that there was a before time.
Yeah.
When none of us thought this was popular or possible.
Yeah. It is difficult. And I always get self-conscious saying this because it just sounds like the symptoms of depression, but like it is difficult to put myself in a mindset where there did feel like there was a possibility that things were going to get better in our lifetimes, just like generally like more justice and all of that. And, we live in a much more cynical time now, and it is kind of hard to undo that, I think.
Yeah. Weirdly, media never makes me think about this, and I'm not saying this I don't want anyone who has made different choices than me to take this personally. The thing that makes me feel like this very hard is whenever I'm thinking about any of my friends with kids.
Oh yeah. No.
Because not having kids has made this tolerable to me. Understanding that, like, yes, I care about the future in an abstract sense for my fellow man and for my friends' kids and everything. But the fact that, like, my immediate vested interest will more or less die with me is a great balm in this time. If I had to worry about, like, how do you explain Dan Bongingo to a kid, you know, or whatever, like, that's too much.
Yeah.
That would be a whole new level to me.
Agreed. You know, I don't think about that often, but yeah. I know.
Sucks.
It does. I don't think you're alone. You know, maybe it's not so common to actually change your listening habits, but I also can totally understand, like, not wanting to be reminded that things were better.
Sure. Is what it is. KL says, what makes a good horror apocalypse and exactly where should it start? I can never quite pin down if it's more satisfying to see the start or the end, a la Return of the Living Dead or The Thing, or to be cognizant of how badly screwed we all are, as in the Mouth of Madness.
I think I prefer the In the Mouth of Madness version. I like it to be a little bit bleaker. You know, not that Return of the Living Dead or the Thing aren't bleak. They're incredibly bleak. I just think about, like, you know, the most effective piece of post-apocalyptic fiction for me is The Road, you know, and like that takes place well after everything is perma-fucked, right?
Yeah. It's after and during is the other, like, third thing I think about too. You know, there's and that's kind of a disaster movie, you know, but doing a beginning but not during. Yeah. Or a during but not beginning, rather. So, like, not Night of the Living Dead, you know, Return of the Living Dead, something where it's been going on for a while. Yeah. I think that's an untapped kind of space. I don't know if it's the most interesting one, but I think I really owe myself a rewatch of 28 Weeks Later. Oh, yeah. You know, I've only seen that one once, and that is one of the few movies I can think of that tried to do that. Yes. You know, and I would like to see that explored more. Generally, I think all of this is good. You know, like, they just do different things. Like, The Thing being the outbreak of the disaster, like, that's a perfect horror movie. I don't know if it's a perfect horror apocalypse, you know, but it's a great horror movie. Yeah. You know, so, but yeah, I'd like to see more during. Yeah, same. It'd be interesting.
Care writes, Cole, you worked in marketing while Mad Men was airing. I just finished it and wonder, do you remember if the show was popular amongst people that you worked with? It was not. Okay, so people that I worked with watched it, but not for marketing reasons. I think it was just prestige television reasons. The only time it came up in a work context was to make fun of it, you know, or, you know, just draw contrast to the fantastic version of it. Between the fantastic version of it and the version that we lived. You know, I don't see Mad Men as a show about marketing. It's, you know, that's just a context that it's in. The thing that came up more, specifically with the biz dev people who were the kind of more loud people who identified with their job and, you know, wanted to have things tied to movies. The entire, like, sales team was so into the Boiler Room, Gary. They were rough. They fucking loved the Boiler Room. They called the room where they worked when we were not in an open office. They called it the Boiler Room. Yeah, it was real bad. These are the same people who did, like, push-up contests and pull-up contests, like, right next to me while I was trying to write. Yeah.
Good Lord. I think in Boiler Room, there's a part where, like, Giovanni Ribisi, somebody walks up to him and he's like, "What are you, last night's erection?" And I always thought that line is like, you need another draft on that bad boy. Yeah. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Nope. Also, Cole, I have your guard down. What was your anonymous name?
I'm not going to say that.
Fuck. Yeah. Well, listeners, you can look forward to me trying to slip that in for the next year or so. See if I can get that out. Yeah. Yeah. No, that is very funny. Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah. No, just there was no like media identification in the creative side, which was nice.
Yeah.
The people that I worked with tended to be cooler than that.
We're still waiting for our Mad Men for podcasters.
God.
Who's the Don Draper of podcasting? No good answers.
Yeah.
Travis McElroy is the trickster. Eric's84 says, and this is not on purpose. I brought this up earlier. Any excitement for 28 years later? The trailer looks awesome. 28 Days Later is one of my favorite zombie movies of all time. 28 Weeks Later is pretty solid as well. While we're at it, any chance of doing either of the 28 movies on Filmable? Love all the shows, and congrats on a very successful Duck stream.
Thank you.
Oh. I have watched the trailer. I'm interested. I wish it hadn't taken so long.
Yeah.
For it. I also like those movies. 28 Days Later, I think, is really fun, and it has one premise thing that I think is.
Yeah.
I was talking about this. I don't like how the army after a month turns into a roving rape gang. That doesn't make any sense to me. Not trying to say, but actually sex assault in the military. Shut up.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying that from a fiction standpoint, the idea is that they're so hard up and it's been 28 days is wild.
Yeah. For 4 weeks is not that long of a time.
No, you can do 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But I think that movie's real neat.
Yeah.
It's been on, it's popped up to my head, and I'm sure we'll do it on a long enough timeline.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I've not seen any of those movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The thing that is like interesting to me about 28 Years Later is like 28 Days and 28 Weeks, like those were shot on digital in order to give the, just like, oh, this is supposed to be like a consumer level, like from the ground kind of perspective. And it was unusual for stuff to be shot in digital for theatrical productions at the time. The fact that 28 Years Later is being shot on phones is interesting.
Yeah.
I also think it's cowardice, because if you look at the quote phone that they're shooting with, it's in this gigantic rig that basically makes it like a Red camera.
Yeah.
It's like, commit to it. I want somebody like carrying this like a literal iPhone by hand.
Then you end up with like those later George Romero zombie found footage style zombie movies as well. But yeah, it's a little bit of a cop out.
Yeah,
for sure. From a filming perspective, I think that's not necessarily very cool. The movies themselves, I think, were kind of fun. Danny Boyle, interesting director.
Does 28 Years Later, is Cillian Murphy back for that? I have no idea what happens at the end of 28 Weeks Later. He's gone. There was one zombie who's in like the trailer who people are like, oh man, that's Cillian Murphy. And I think that's been debunked. Okay.
So.
Eric writes, as a fan of early Dr. Katz and Space Ghost Coast to Coast, I've always had affection for Judy Tenuta. So boy, have I been surprised to hear her brought up a few times in passing on Guppy and other shows. Is this a genuine affection for our shrieking accordion queen, or did I miss a joke somewhere? And rip as well.
I think that's me and Will just being the age that we are.
Yeah.
And being comedy dorks. Comedy dorks. I used to watch a lot of Comedy Central growing up. I've got a familiarity with Judy Tenuta that somebody 5 years older than me would have.
Yep.
I had some affection. I watched it as a kid and liked it. I haven't gone back. So it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, I love this bit, or I think that this album is genius.
Yeah. Whenever a comedian dies, there's a public funeral for them on social media where people just post the best of their clips.
Yes.
And so I watched those as they bubbled up, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I can see why this was, popular insofar as that kind of like alt quirky scene could be popular, right?
A good scene. Yeah. So you're generally in favor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do some show questions.
Let's
move on to lightning round. Scanning on down here, I've got to Oceanland, who says, hi guys, big fan of the network. WAF is my official comfort podcast for when I have a crappy day. Speaking as a fellow small business owner, I find it incredibly impressive how consistently and unobtrusively you guys are able to promote your Patreon. I get yourself paid for the great work you do. I know as a creative, it can be tough requesting that people pay you for your work, even if it's well justified. Is this a muscle you've had to build up as you've grown, or is this something you were comfortable with right away? Keep up the awesome work. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a muscle. I have.
Yeah, we definitely had to get better at that.
Yeah, I had to work kind of consciously not to make the not to wrap the ask in an apology, right?
Yeah, we've gotten better at that.
Yeah,
like that was really hard, and then we got good at it. Mm-hmm. Like now, it just makes sense. I think that doing it full time, and having it be your job, paying for insurance with it, all those things kind of help. There are definitely like kind of breaking moments of it too.
Yeah,
when we put WAF under, when we did the I spent 90 hours on Baldur's Gate 2 this month. Like that was a real okay, this is real.
Yeah.
We can ask for more money. We can start doing premium episodes of WAF, things like that. Like it kind of came in stages, but it was definitely something I don't think we were good at initially.
Yeah.
Early on in the podcast, we bought games for people who wrote in. We paid you. We were so apologetic and trying to find a way to, devalue our work.
Yeah. I think also just the culture around this has changed too. I think that we would not have had such a hard time early on if we weren't relatively early adopters of Patreon and that kind of particular model,
Yeah. Possibly. Yeah. It's hard to say. I don't know how that works for people who got in, people are getting in now as a thing. I think that the payment model is a more accepted thing. Like you're going to go do that, but then you also run into a different level of cart before horsing, people who have a producer and all the stuff lined up and then have nothing they want to talk about, who kind of get production and payment model first.
Yeah.
With this sort of thing that happens a lot more with YouTube than podcasts, but it's still a thing.
Yeah. Somebody brought I forget what it's called, but just a Reddit forum for aspiring YouTubers. And I took a look at that and I was like, oh, that is real.
We both saw the same Dan Olsen tweet. And then went to that Reddit. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh no.
Yeah, it's bleak. It's just this isn't great. This isn't the way to do it. But surely there's a right way that's some way between the way we did it of waiting 8 years to ask for money or 7 years to ask for money and the way they're doing it.
Yeah. Eric writes, I'm sure I could just Google this, but it'd be interesting to hear the answer from y'all. Does it make any notable difference on the Duckfeed backend what platform listeners use to listen to shows? Apple, Pocket Cast, Spotify, etc. I'm sure you just want us to listen wherever we prefer, but do some platforms provide better data or metrics for y'all? Does listening on a platform like YouTube Music or Spotify send any amount of money your way? Are Apple reviews still a big deal, or have other ratings taken its place? Just interested to know a bit more about how the sausage is made.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Listen wherever you want. Spotify gives data. Every other source, I think, except for YouTube, but there's not enough people on YouTube for it to make a difference. Not enough people listen on YouTube Music to make a difference to count that for the way we split the money, But everything else feeds back to just the analytics on our podcast host. So if you're just listening to it through an RSS feed, then that is all kind of counting in the same spot, but we're not as numbers focused now anymore. The number that I am mostly focused on is the Patreon total. Right.
Yeah, it's those two things there's an A/B disagreement going on with those two things between people who are more numbers focused, I think, because there's no way that you can listen that gives us more money other than Patreon.
Yeah. No.
It's not like we get money from Spotify, but we don't from Apple. We don't get money from either of them.
Nope.
We use the numbers. The data is useful to us in two ways, one with a capital U and one with a lowercase u. The capital U one is that's how we split the Patreon money, is how, based on listen and downloads. And the lowercase one is, it's kind of nice to know.
Yeah, it's nice to know.
It's a little feather in our cap. And then sometimes if we try to flex a number, we have a number to flex. Useful is it doesn't actually have a material effect.
Yeah.
So honestly, the reason why we just want you to do it however you want is because it does not matter to us.
Yeah.
In kind of a real sense.
I do wish that Patreon had a way to track downloads from that. It's actually kind of senseless and weirdly unforgivable that they don't. but I also know that is a feature that is coming. So
Yeah. And again, also it's a thing where it's not going to. The only reason I'm underlining this and clarifying it because of Eric, how Eric asked the question. That would be cool to know.
Yes,
but cool is where that kind of, it wouldn't change the amount of money we get. It wouldn't change our material conditions. It's not like we're suffering because of it.
Yeah,
it'd be cool. It'd be nice.
Yeah. Nobody needs to change their behavior based on the decisions that we made with the back end. Our decisions with the back end, insofar as we have any control over it, those are made based on how, making it easy for you to listen how you want. Right.
Yeah. Because it's not tied to our well-being.
Yes.
Kind of part of it. Like it's always nice to have more listeners. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
Rate and review us. But it's not something that impacts us.
Yeah. Philosophically, I'm annoyed with Spotify and YouTube being their own little walled garden that like re-uploads your shows to host them or whatever. I think everything should be, podcasting is RSS, and anything that changes that alters the relationship and is just there to harvest data and sell ads against. So, but that is a philosophical kind of thing for me, more so than a practical thing that affects our livelihoods.
Yeah. Jonathan says, and this seems like a lightning round question that got snuck in here, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it. Anyway, will the inevitable Sonic 4 Adaptation Decay episode just be an Eldritch ritual to see if you can speedrun driving each other into madness? That seems to be the arc of the toss. I'm here for it either way. I like Arc of the Toss.
Yeah, Arc of the Toss is good. I might take that, Jonathan.
It might be the Arc of the Toss. I don't mind that.
Uh-huh.
I kind of like the sound of that. Who knows? We have the movie production refractory period, as we mentioned in the episode. If that was coming like in a month, like I wouldn't want to do it. The fact that it's going to be years means that we'll have fully recovered. So it'll probably be in line with the other ones.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think the third one escalated that much over the second one.
No.
But maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah. Hard to have perspective. Let's see here. Holland writes, except for a 7-month break in between the main game and Shadow of the Erdtree, in March, you guys will have been covering Elden Ring for 3 years. Are you starting to feel burnout, or is it still compelling? I ask partly because my friends and I are currently starting our 3rd co-op campaign in a row. Before, we used to try out all sorts of games, but now all we play is Elden Ring. Happily, I should add. What does life after Elden Ring look like? Is there a point where you feel that you'll put it away for good? Or do you think that it's a title you'll always return to in your life, regardless of doing it for a show or not?
Yeah. Thank you, Holland.
Thank you.
Friend of the show.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be putting it down for now. Like I'm happy to have a break.
Yeah.
Personally, I would be surprised if I never play Elden Ring again. At a long enough timeline. I can imagine just picking up and fucking with some builds.
Yeah.
It's, I played a lot.
Yeah.
Played a lot of Elden Ring. Like I played through multiple times on my own and then also did one for the show. It's a big fucking game.
Yeah.
So it's not a forever game for me. Like if I had a co-op experience, maybe, but as for me, like I don't need to just keep kind of having a run going.
Yeah.
With it. I did quite a bit. It's not quite burnout. It's just kind of full.
Yeah.
I'm full.
I just feel like I'm done with it. I'm done with it for now. Something might happen later. A mod will probably bring me back to it at some point. But like, I'm good.
The mods provide that useful data point that crafting ruins a randomizer mod.
Yep.
Like the Elden Ring randomizer, not that fun. It's relatively fun, but it's got nothing on the old ones.
Yeah. Let's go to lightning round.
Yeah, let's do. Here, let me scroll on up. Do you want to get us started here?
Yeah.
I know it's not in order, but I'm scrolling.
Cinderelf writes, are you excited for the upcoming A24 Tim Robinson horror comedy film Friendship? Yeah.
Very much so. The tagline, men shouldn't have friends, is very funny.
Yup.
It looks great.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. And I liked I Love You, Man. Like that old movie that this kind of feels a little bit like.
Yeah.
Like a more funny, more modern version of that. I'm super excited.
Yeah. And I think that Tim Robinson doing horror makes sense.
I love Tim Robinson so much. Ross says, an evil land developer wants to knock down the Civic Center. And to save it, you need to find some way to make some cash. Serendipitously, you see a poster for an underground charcuterie board competition. The competition is tough, but you have to win. What would you put on your board? Would you be avant-garde or classic? Would you lean into the salty sweet or the fatty acidic? Would you tell a story with your plate or delight in the abstract? This is a question that started as a screenplay, but they thought it'd be better as a lightning round question for the dispatch.
Yep. I have no answer for this question, Gary. I've never had a charcuterie board. I've never made one.
What?
Yeah, no, it's...
You never had a charcuterie board?
No.
You would love it. It's ingredients.
Yeah, where do you think I live, Gary?
I know where you live, and I know the gastrointestinal terror of Midwest eating. We go to Milwaukee. We should find a charcuterie board. They're nice.
There's a lot of charcuterie boards. Like it's just like meat paste smeared across wood.
No. Every once in a while you get a meat paste, but like the pâtés are not mandatory. A lot of times it's just like cured meat. Yeah. Like delicious cured meats, pickles, cheeses. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the biggest, flattest Lunchable.
See, that's the thing, right? Like the closest thing that I've had is like the upscale Lunchable.
Sure. Yeah. An upscale Lunchable is not that different from a charcuterie board. You would just get higher quality and more variety.
Yeah.
So I'll take the lead on this one. Mm-hmm. As somebody who's had a charcuterie board before, I would go since I need to taste everything, know if it's good. Mm-hmm. I would end up going pretty classic rather than avant-garde, and I don't do organ meats. Mm-hmm. I don't do pâtés, so I wouldn't have that. I think my secret would be uses of things like sweet and savory, like salty and honey. Yeah, like you get like a fig, a nice piece of prosciutto, and then maybe some like hot honey. Mm-hmm. That'd be quite good.
Yeah. Of the options, the salty sweet sounds better to me than the fatty acidic. That might just be a palate thing, but
it's not. It's also not really either or.
Yeah,
generally you'll get all of it.
Yeah, I would
board.
I would like to see a balance between them.
Yes. Yeah, charcuterie quite good. It is a silly food. Mm-hmm. Because it is just, if you take everything on it and put it in between bread, you just have like a big sandwich.
I just remember when it was called like meat and cheese trays.
It's pretty similar. Like that is what Gus kind of lays out charcuterie a little bit. Yeah. When he does his meetings in Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Zach writes, Gary, I would love to hear about any tabletop RPG groups you are in. Also, if you are playing modules or campaign settings. During Realitch Hours, when you talked about selling video games to get Council of the Worms, they continue. I traded in several Game Boy Advance games at Babbage's to get that exact book. My group never wanted to play a Dragon campaign, but 20 plus years on, maybe that is a good thing. Thanks for all your content.
No, thanks, Zach.
Thanks.
I'm just in the one game group. We wrapped up our game actually a while ago with the holidays, and everybody kind of got sick. Yeah. In a row. We haven't played for the last month and a half or so. Mm-hmm. We're hoping to get back together this week. We were playing in the campaign. Levi was running a game that was in Planescape, but we're using a different system. Mm-hmm. We're using a system called Spellbound Kingdoms. That was really fun. We've run modules and campaigns before. I've run Horror on the Orient Express, that Call of Cthulhu big box set before. Generally, we do homebrew stuff. And current plans for the tabletop game is I think that Brayton is going to run us through the little mini campaign that comes with the D&D Lego set. Oh. There. And Riff, our friend from Asymmetric Games, is going to run through a game called Eat the Reich. Wonder why that sounds good right now. And then I'm going to start my game, which is a homebrew setting, but I'm going to run it in Iron Kingdoms, which is my favorite mechanical tabletop system. Yeah, I think it is great for tactics.
Nice. Yeah. What's Michelle say?
What does Michelle? Oh yeah, this is we did a little reversey.
We did.
What's your anonymous name?
I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to say.
Michelle says, great news. The Duckfeed Network won a contest, and every host gets to go on a cross-country road trip from Santa Monica to New York City with one cast member from the beloved 1990 sitcom News Radio. Bad news. Gary and Cole forgot to check their email until after everyone else got their picks in, and there's only 2 choices left. Which one of you is going with Andy Dick, and which of you is going with Joe Rogan? That's a brutal question.
That is a very brutal question. Can I call Joe Rogan? I feel like I can make fun of him without him knowing it, and that would be very fun.
Yeah, you can call Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
At this point.
So
Andy Dick sucks.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think that the world would be better if Andy Dick and I got into a car crash. So like, I like you having the responsibility for Joe Rogan because there's a little bit of like, would you rather have $1 million or lunch with Elon Musk? And it's like, well, what can I do during this lunch? Is it a lunch in like a closed room with no windows? Are there other people there? Like, does it have to just be lunch?
Are there metal detectors?
Yeah, are there metal detectors at this lunch? Like, there's a lot of questions with that. With Andy Dick, it's like, yeah, that guy kind of sucks. I wouldn't have that much fun. I bet you in a road trip, you're like very exhausting, but it doesn't, it's not a trolley problem.
Yeah.
Like your scenario would be.
Yeah. I don't know that I could be in the same room with somebody who enabled the murder of Phil Hartman.
Yeah. And whoever got Phil Hartman's skeleton, they got the best pick for that.
Yeah.
Just audiobooks and looks on the highway for the entire time.
just a real bummer.
Yep. It's a real bummer.
Yeah. Tamike says, has a line from pop culture or media ever embedded itself into your psyche? Just to give an example, in 2017, I listened to an episode of Monster on my podcast on the sea lion. Gary's joke about the real world sea lion, or an underwater dock dog, as he called it, made me laugh so hard I still remember it. 7 years later, and I giggle. Any similar experiences for you? And thanks for providing such great entertainment all these years.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen to me talk.
We do a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff gets kind of sticky.
Yeah. Just it becomes part of vocabulary. It becomes shorthand for concepts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not all Simpsons. Sometimes it's Twitter. Or whatever we happen to be talking about at the time. So like Breaking Bad and Venture Brothers and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll bring up things as if they're universal. And in our mind.
This isn't like a recent malady. This goes all the way back. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Abe says, hey guys, just wondering if Gary's Elden Ring troll has popped back up to harass him since the Cyberpunk episode, included some discussion of some non-functional quests. Thank you. This is in reference to somebody who got very mad at me at Hayeda's quest in Elden Ring not working for me. She did not show up in a place where she was supposed to show up. And I said this, and somebody got really mad and left a really mean comment about how I'm not doing my job and I'm lazy because that happened. And then, we blocked him, kicked him off the Patreon because, you can't give me $5 to be an asshole. I'm worth more than that. And then they came back.
Yeah.
At one point. So there's at least $10 in our coffers for this person just to be a real dick.
Yeah.
And then they were creating new Blue Sky accounts for a little bit.
Yeah. Just really climbing up into your DMs, also like gleefully talking about pirating our show and like making a moral point about it. Just like, I've taken it and given it away for free. It's like, why would you give away something you think sucks and is made by lazy people?
For free. And also like, it's not getting, go listen to our other question about downloads. Like, on the off chance that stopped somebody from patronizing, that's the only way that's going to hurt us financially, if that's the idea. So some people get mad about video games to a degree that they cannot emotionally accept that there's no real way for you to hurt us without like going to jail.
Yeah.
Without getting real intense. And that just has to be okay. Yeah. Like they work themselves out. Like they get angry and they freak out and then they have a nice nap. And I assume they moved. I assume that person went on with their life. Yeah. And did other stuff.
I assume they went on to harass other people. I don't know that is a malady that gets better over time without effort.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, or maybe something else distracted them. Something was more fun. Like, I don't think that person was doing that out of a principle. I don't think that's like a need that needs to be like a principle that needs to be satisfied. Who can say? Yeah. That's such a weird thing to do. I can't tell what the logic was.
Same.
Behind that.
Yeah. Dylan writes, I noticed that a lot of the questions are submitted by people named Dylan. I've never submitted a question before, but every time I hear the next question is from Dylan, I have a split-second worry that I submitted something while intoxicated and forgot about it. Note that I still have not submitted a question.
Yeah. Thank you, Dylan.
Thanks, Dylan.
Yeah. No need to post while drunk.
Nope. Please.
That's the way to stop that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soulful Bison says, I'm playing through Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 right now, and it's got me thinking, what medieval profession would you guys choose, and which would you actually end up being? It's cool that the game allows me to fulfill my fantasy of shoveling shit for the local lord in exquisite detail. This is the fun question. I always want to think, am I coming back now, or is it just like, what if I had been born then?
Yeah.
If it's what if I had been born then, like, I don't know, fucking practice for knights, like surf, I'd be grounded in dirt, like, I'd have a shitty life because that's what people had.
I'd be very good at testing swords.
Yes, it'd be testing for the stabbiness of swords. If I could go back now, or if I was just choosing my druthers, I thought about before. So like the temptation is court wizard, because you go back in time and you know a lot of things that make you seem like a court wizard. The problem then is everyone there is fucking insane. So if you say something that they don't like, regardless of how true it is, they might just kill you.
Yes.
So let me run this by you, Cole, for a safe pick. Scribe.
See, scribe, I was also thinking like, okay, at what point are we talking, medieval here? Because that's a pretty broad kind of thing here. Scribe or like printmaker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like somebody who works in a print shop, I think would be good.
Yeah. I think that would be nice and tolerable and realistic with my skill set.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does Gavin say? That was me, but I'm not putting in the things because I put them in lowercase, and then you fight me. So you can just do it.
You were.
What does Gavin say?
You did put it in uppercase, and then I made it lowercase just to be contrarian, and you didn't remark on it.
Notice. We have like a little fight going on in the background of all these episodes.
Gavin says, if you were required to own a large cat, lion, tiger, lynx, etc., because of a twist of fate, what would it be and why?
Oh, good question.
No. A palace cat or a manul would be really great.
Yeah. Those are only kind of a large cat, though.
Yeah. Okay. So how about a snow leopard?
Snow leopards,
Those
snow
tails,
man.
really
Great.
Those tails.
If it's gonna be like one's dumped on my lap, and I have to survive, then I would do research to figure out which one would be least likely to kill me and my cats. If the idea is I could have one and like it would like me, then I might go snow leopard because those are very sweet.
Yes.
Yeah. I also really love a lynx. I think lynx look cool. I like that more than I like a lion or a tiger.
Yeah. I think it's what is it? It's like cheetahs are basically like dogs.
Yeah.
As well. Like a cheetah might be fine.
Cheetah might be cool. And then also, if you had science in your house, you could become one of the cheetah men.
Yep.
Yeah. Alvi says, Cole, if I ask Gary whether he is the podcaster who always lies or the podcaster who always tells the truth, what would his answer be?
His answer would be that he is the one who lies.
There we go.
All right. That is not a moral judgment. I literally just flipped a coin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Chris writes, Cole, you're a bit of an enigma, but I know you love cats. What silly names do you have for your cats? Our youngest, Jenny, short for Genesee, is also known as Bean Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen. So do you have anything equally silly for your fluffy friends?
Do you?
No, just Babe.
Yeah.
Sometimes call him Stinky.
Stinky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steven says, lightning round. My friends and I are finally going to make it to Midwest Gaming Classic this year. Will you guys be going in as well? Yes, we'll have more details next week.
Yes. Matthew writes, they say that too much of a good thing is bad. Is there something in games or in a specific game that was good, but there was too much of it, so it turned bad?
It's a good question. That's more of a topic.
That is more of a topic.
I'm trying to think of, yeah.
Yeah, I might promote this one, and we can just, we can hit that in a roundup later.
Yeah. Yeah, just skip that bad boy.
Yeah. Let's see here. Dylan writes, what are your favorite Arrested Development quotes? I'm partial to, I don't understand the question and I won't respond to it. You were an angel, Jessica Walter. Agreed.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
I think about tons of quotes from it, like all the big famous ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it looks like satisfying.
Looks like I blew myself. Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of things. Her.
It's
all very funny. A lot of the good seasons of that show, I have pretty deeply ingrained.
Yes. Yeah. Most of the big ones, I don't have like a especially unique or deep pull on it.
Yeah, same. Jason says, what gear does Gary use with his band? Any specific keyboards, synths, effects? I currently play 2 keyboards in Modridge. I have a Roland DeGaia as my lead keyboard, and then I use a Korg SV1 as my bass and then also piano organ keyboard. Amps are just amps I have. I've never been able to remember what an amp is. As a keyboardist, that stuff is less important in a general sense. But those are the 2 keyboards. I have a Hammond drawbar organ that is going to be on the record that I bought used like a couple of years ago. I still have not gotten a chance to use. That I'm going to be doing the leads on the record that we're working on. After we get all the bass tracks recorded, I'm really excited to bust that thing out.
Yeah.
Drawbars, I don't know exactly what they do. It's hard to find a tutorial, but they're fucking fun. Like, it's got a really satisfying action.
Yeah. I like synths. I don't understand them. I don't use them, can't play them, but I think they're neat.
It's super great. They're really fun.
Zumbini says, what's the closest the WAF has ever come to ending? Low listenership, a fight over roguelikes, having to read Audible ads?
And not a discussion that we've ever had.
No.
We've had the, like, several times when burnout stuff approaches or when we get, too worked, we've been like, what's on I've taken several long looks, like, what's on the thing that could go away?
Yeah.
What's on our thing? But WAF has never been on the chopping block.
No.
It's the flagship show. It's the one I'm most proud of. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's never really been a serious consideration.
Yeah. Other stuff might go away at some point. Again, nobody freak out. Just like at some point, something's got to break. If we want to do new shows, things have to rotate out. But I think this one's safe.
Agreed.
Eric says, what's each of your favorite little-known bands that you recommend to people when they're looking for music recommendations? Also, do either of you have any guilty pleasure bands that you're afraid to admit? Mine is Supertramp. Don't poo-poo Supertramp, friend. The Supertramp, that first Breakfast in America, like half of that were huge singles. It's like one of those records, like the Cars' first record, where like it almost functions as a greatest hits.
Yeah.
And all those songs are bangers. Like Take the Long Way Home, good song.
Yeah.
Logical song, good song.
Supertramp is really good.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with Supertramp.
Yeah. I'm always a booster for Shearwater and Dockerville River. It's like, do you want some good, mid to God damn it, Gary, my name doesn't begin with a B. I saw you put the J.
I read this question.
Okay. Anyway, just a good, mid 2000s indie rock kind of stuff. That's mine. As far as guilty pleasure bands, it's really hard. I don't consider things to be guilty pleasures, really.
Yeah, I don't. Nothing's a guilty pleasure at this point. I usually like all the stuff that I like just fine. Every once in a while, something will come through that is a recommendation with caveats. This is just recency bias because I was thinking about it today. Somebody who's a songwriter who I really like, who I think has not ever had a record that sounds like it's produced in a way I like, is Michael Penn.
Okay,
Amy Mann's husband, has done a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson. Kind of collaboration stuff. Good songs. Everything is overproduced, like through the adult contemporary, machine. Like, hey, that's one of Clapton's. It's all put through that filter. And kind of a bummer, but the actual songs are good.
Yeah.
And then in terms of obscure bands, the last couple of years I've been championing the Tubs. I like the Tubs. Their second record's coming out soon, and I'm going to be able to see them. They're from overseas, but they're playing in Portland in June. So I'm going to go see the Tubs. They're opening for The Birthday Party, which is a band I don't particularly care for. So I think we're just going to go watch the opener and then split. Pull that power move.
Yeah, that's a really good move.
Yeah.
Let's push through. Let's push through the lightning rounds. Caleb writes, when are we getting an adopted adult son for the Duckfeed compound?
We need to get a compound first.
We do need to get a compound. I want to adopt a grandson.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like that idea. Sure. I don't see why not. Yeah. Ian says, who, what, where, when, and why is Zoodog? We're still stuck on who.
Yeah,
Like, getting way ahead.
I mean, we've been stuck on Who for almost a decade now.
Yeah, we're not doing good work on it.
No. Zoodog is an indie game creator who made religious games. We covered the Zoo Race and then discovered the miracle that is the Angel Quiz. This is in abject suffering times. Seems like a pretty ridiculous guy. Yeah. That's it. That's the answer. It does not encompass.
Yes.
We have not fully answered the Who, but that is actually that is
that's
to inform.
the basics.
Mm-hmm.
What does Matt say?
Matt says, "Why are gamers like this?" You know what I mean.
It's a great question. People are kind of like this in some ways.
Yeah.
People are good. A lot of people are. But I think that there are people who do the gamer shit in all kinds of fandoms.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about that recently, is the idea that I think that it's gamers who are the culture shits right now. Is that a function of like, I know it's not a function of gaming is, and you make arguments around that, but I don't think it's solely a function. But I was thinking about, is that a gamers being shits, or is that young people of a certain age being shits and a lot of people playing games? Like, I don't think it's really, I think it's just there's a segment of the population that fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And it's like, if they weren't gaming, they'd be doing whatever the current cultural media thing was. And whatever the current cultural media thing was would sometimes cater to them in ways that created them, and then sometimes not cater to them in ways that infuriated them. There's nothing specific about games, though. Like, if we lived in a different world where this was about, hopscotch, like there would be, Reddit and Gamergate for hopscotch.
Yeah.
They're just people who are uncomfortable with diversity and who don't like being asked to pay attention to things.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to take away like people's culpability in engaging in harassment campaigns, but like it cannot be like overstated how not artificial, but how intentional the radicalization of gamers was. Like it was a specific strategy, not just like from Steve Bannon, and Breitbart, with their whole thing of politics being downstream from culture, but like this goes back to like Usenet days. Like white supremacists very specifically like targeted, enthusiast nerd groups to try and, rope them in. And that's like the environment where like Curtis Yarvin comes from, stuff like that. So like, I think that there's just a matter of like, they're targeted for a lot of this, but that is kind of leading to what you say, like, why do you rob a bank? That's where the money is.
Yeah. They would have targeted whoever. Yeah. It's also, and again, not the other answer to this is because they're idiots.
Yeah.
Like the people who fall for this are weak. It's a skill issue.
Yeah.
You can be targeted by somebody like Steve Bannon, but imagine being convinced by somebody like Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
Like if you are that credulous, like that is a little bit just on you. It's a character defect. Like when we're talking about gamers, we're not talking about people who play video games, obviously.
Yeah.
For anybody who's new to our politics, when this person asks you about that, they're talking about harassment, like shitty gamers, gamer derogatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Grums. Moral failing. The reason why Grums is like that is because he lacks virtue.
Yep.
It is because he's a bad person. He's not interested in the quest of what it is to be a good person and is not succeeding at it.
You just kind of have to see it as an inherent thing in people, and then there are amplifying factors and incentive structures, Yeah. I think that like a lot of this also has to do with the attention economy as well. There's just a bunch of stuff around it. And all of it just kind of goes back to like, do you think other people matter and have lives that count or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a spectrum from that to like, do you have a sense of proportion to where it is a beyond the pale ask to be asked to share something or consider something?
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of like, when you get down to it, it always comes down to like, I can't explain to you why you should care about other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of conservative grievance in gamer spaces is literally just being a little bit annoyed.
Yeah.
And then having people fluff them up into thinking that is worth getting pissed about. Like saying like, like I can't believe somebody's complaining about this. And that can be a little annoying. You don't think it's that big a deal. They do. That's the disagreement. That isn't a banner to go to war, though. So like it's just a spectrum of, do you care about them, or is it really, really fucking you up to have somebody else express an opinion that something matters?
Yeah. You know, and do you take that as a personal criticism of yours?
Yes.
That is going to be like, it basically is somebody wanting something different from you an insult, or do you interpret that as them trying to take things away from you? And my whole thing with gamers is, if you are worried that somebody is trying to take your games away, somebody absolutely should.
Yeah, and they are.
Yeah.
Be careful. I was thinking about this in terms of how. This is in terms of feminism, not necessarily gamer-related things. But when people are like, oh, you shouldn't say, when the dad is watching the kids, you shouldn't say babysitting, right? Because that's they're not babysitting, they're being a parent and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had the thought, when I was trying to stretch my brain to understand the current hellscape we're in, which I do want to understand, right? And it was like, I can understand the response of somebody being like, yes, that might technically be true, but in what world is that a big deal?
Yeah.
I can understand somebody rejecting that premise because they're like, ugh, that's not a big deal. I think that these other forces, when we talk about people gassing people up to make them worse, they're fanning that little ember.
Yeah.
The little ember of being like, is this really what we're talking about? This doesn't matter. It's just kind of a joke, and they're taking that and being like, they do want it to matter so much that they're going to force you to fucking say it, and you can't say it.
Yeah.
When you're going to get canceled for saying it.
They're going to put you in jail. Yeah.
They're going to put you in jail for saying it. Like they really, when it really, it's just somebody writing an essay on Jezebel that's like, hey, this sucks. People shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Taking that ember of annoyance, which I think is understandable. I can understand the argument. Like, is that really the fire we need to put out right now?
Yeah.
Like whether somebody makes that comment? No.
Yeah.
But nobody's saying it's the main fire we need to put out right now. Somebody just mentioned it because it contributes. It sucks. Nobody who is on the progressive side is treating all things as equal.
No.
But those kind of forces that are fanning the flames are trying to convince people that they are.
Yeah. If you're annoyed by a leftist, that doesn't mean you have to be a terrible person. I do not know a leftist who is not incredibly annoyed by other leftists.
Very annoying. It's like when you think about it in those terms of somebody who is just being asked, to consider something as, they're not just being asked to consider something to their mind and what they're being told. They're being asked to put this in front of all other things. It makes some of these people's mindset make a little bit more sense. Like, you think about, like, obviously we have no clemency for any kind of transphobia. Obviously, it fucking sucks. Everyone gets to live their life. The reason why people are so scared of trans people is because they have been convinced that they want something other than just to be left alone.
Yeah.
If the actual ask of just like, no, they just want to go to the store and not get yelled at. Like they want to use the bathroom. It's not a big ask, but the fear mongering is always that like, no. That's where it starts. But ultimately it's going to be, forced transition on the playground from roving gangs of men.
And you're personally going to have to pay for it.
Yeah. And you're going to have to shell out for it. All these things that nobody's asking for. And I think that little kind of annoyance or just being like, is this really a thing? Like something you should be able to just brush off if you don't agree with it, if you're not cool with it, which sucks, but you're not being harmful. It should be something you can just like be annoyed at.
Yeah.
Like that is more understandable to me, but people get gassed up.
Yeah.
And that shit. And that's where the kind of the culture and the forces kind of come to culpability where it loses personal responsibility. So even though you should also be strong enough not to let people do that.
Yeah.
To you. You have a moral responsibility to shrug off grums. Anyone who's telling you that, you should see through really obvious lies.
It is so easy.
It's really easy.
Yeah.
There's nothing, it's so hard not to go back to it. Like you're scared of nothing. What is going to happen?
Yeah.
There are so few trans people and all they want to do is like go to work.
Yeah.
And like just do like nobody's doing anything. Like there's nothing to do. They just want to be. Like nothing's gonna happen to you. There's no look at it, look into it. There's no evidence. There's nothing. Nothing to be scared of. Like all these people are saying this is a slippery slope. It's not a slippery slope.
No.
Like and you got to be like a little bit fucking streetwise and look past that dips. Yeah. Moi says, MWH says, hello, have you folks played or been reading about Avowed, the new game from Obsidian? It's an interesting game with very high highs and aggressively mids. It's smaller in scope than a lot of modern RPGs, but shines in its focus and density. Curious to hear y'all's thoughts. Very curious. Have not played it. Excited to play it. I'm really glad it's doing good. Like the right people are saying cool things about it. I'm very excited to play it. I have not done it yet.
Yeah. Same, pretty much. It looks neat. I didn't pay any attention to it until it came out. And now that it has,
I wish I could get excited about the Pillars of Eternity world. Like they're making a tabletop setting for it. I know Josh Sawyer cares a lot about that world. That was not it, Chief. To me, like I liked Pillars of Eternity 1 just fine.
Yeah.
It gets the job done, but it was not something I would have doubled down on.
Yeah.
And like just kept going in that world, especially when you have tyranny right there. Like, you have a much more interesting world you've created.
I had no idea that Avowed was a Pillars of Eternity game until
it's in the Pillars of Eternity universe.
Until like kind of a few days after it released, and somebody made an offhand like comment about it.
Yeah, you get to remember all of your favorites. Like I defy anyone to remember anything from Pillars of Eternity.
Final lightning round question here. Jason says, sorry if this has been covered before, but with all the games you've played or covered, do you guys have comfort games or games you go back to when you're not playing something for a show?
Yeah. I got real sick. This is the first time I'm recording Duckfeed stuff since I got really sick, and I needed something to go back to, and I kept ping-ponging between things to go back to. And things just required the wrong amount of focus, and I ended up landing on Darkest Dungeon 1 again.
Ooh.
So I started a new Darkest Dungeon 1 game, and I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Frostpunk.
Yep.
Like a good Frostpunk.
Thanks everybody for writing in questions.
Yeah.
We will be back. If we didn't get to your question, we might during our overflow. Those come out once a quarter. For now, let's read some responses to these games.
Yes. Let's get started with responses about Bandersnatch. Nobody wrote in about Tenchu.
Surprising.
So I included, I left more stuff in for Bandersnatch because people had stuff to say. Drew writes, I understand why people keep trying to make it happen, but interactive fiction like this occupies an unsatisfying no man's land between two art forms that I adore on their own. They're not quite oil and water, but trying to force a movie to be a game inherently compromises film strengths as a storytelling medium, in the same way that making games overly cinematic ignores interactivity as a narrative mechanism. I've enjoyed seeing how people adapt these two different platforms, but the absolute upper limit of these things seems to be, that's cute.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, the upper limit is supermassive games.
Yeah.
I think those are the best those get. And those are real fun.
Yep.
I like that those exist. Do they insist upon themselves? Like, are they doing the best thing with both of the mediums they're combining?
No.
It doesn't need to. I plead the fifth on that. I just think they're real fun and good, well crafted.
Yeah. I'll play them pretty much immediately after they come out.
Yeah.
Right?
We'll cover them, the big ones that come out because they're fun. And it's a blast to play with people. Like it goes down real smooth, real fun to play with Liv. Tim says, hi all. I started watching Black Mirror when season 3 aired on Netflix and still remains my top 5 seasons of TV of all time. The first 2 seasons are a little weird, and the later seasons didn't grip me as much as season 3 and 4 did. Bandersnatch was the only Netflix interactive story I played or hadn't even heard of, and I loved it. But hearing you guys discuss, I have to agree it only gets worse the more you think about it. It's just not a good game at all. I think you're onto something that this medium could work if it had the right content. But for now, there's much better games to play. Optional, if you could recommend any choose-your-own-adventure games that are in a pure form. By that I mean not Disco Elysium or a Fallout type of thing. Perhaps the supermassive games might interest you. Telltale games are also that basically, and I think are really good.
Yes.
They're early Telltale stuff. Like Walking Dead seasons 1 and I'll go to bat for 2. I like season 2 of Walking Dead. And The Wolf Among Us are still very good.
Yep.
And I think that like you could probably have a worse time than like picking up that Batman game.
Yeah.
I haven't played it, but I bet you it's fine.
Yeah. If you want to get a Batman story.
Yeah. The probably pretty good.
Yeah. I took the last question as over the other way, just like, like a choose your own adventure thing. And I was like, Sir Bronte, like that's a game book. But also,
Yeah, that's also very good at that.
Yeah. Let's see. Sarlus says, I enjoyed your episode on Bandersnatch, which I was also pretty underwhelmed by as a media object, but I wanted to present an alternate read on one of the themes of Bandersnatch, specifically its stance on drugs, mental health, and creativity. I feel like the fact worse decisions get treated as better endings is more of a commentary about how the spectacle of suffering makes for better entertainment. From the get-go, they plant the seeds of a mad artist trope, which, while cliche, is more of a story than a guy stays on his SSRIs and performs an ambitious but unrealistic project in a professional setting. Especially if you're watching a thriller and are waiting for it to hit the fan in some way. A lot of the Greek chorus endings have less to do with whether the game is good than whether it comes with a salacious story. The really good endings are framed more like true crime reports than game reviews, while the worst ending just seems to be getting grilled by some trashy AVGN/Navigator hybrid public access show for being average. That feels more consistent with Black Mirror being specifically concerned with media technology's relationship to humanity's worst impulses, and does more to foreshadow the eventual meta move, where the point of Stefan's story is the audience's voyeuristic consumption of his breakdown, not his growth as an artist.
I think that we're ultimately talking about a 90-minute movie. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that there is something where I think you're right in terms of what it intended.
It has to be a story.
That is a better story than the SSRI thing. That's just something that we picked up on as like that kind of sucks. Yeah, as a trope to enforce
because it sucks elsewhere too. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it is a harmful trope that the movie is engaging with, even if it was not the point of the movie. Mm-hmm. Is kind of more what we were getting at.
Yeah,
not to speak for you, but to speak for me.
No, that makes sense. But like your read on it sounds right to me. It's
the SSRI thing also is in our consciousness now. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a hot button topic. Mm-hmm. So, Craig says, I enjoyed your discussion of Bandersnatch. Black Mirror was always a show that disappointed me by getting close to my heart and then missing at the last second. Charlie Brooker's writing and satire used to be great, and he's clearly well-read, played, watched with similar taste to me. I remember quite enjoying his Big Brother with Zombies show Dead Set a lot as well, which means not only did Black Mirror's facile, me mom's a mobile, isn't it, tendencies great, but it hurts to know that the guy behind this has read Philip K. Dick and William Gibson and so forth, but still gave us baby's first speculative fiction over and over. Bandersnatch felt no different to most Black Mirror that I'd seen, somehow just a few degrees off and shallow at the same time, but the choose your own adventure format meant that I was more forgiving of this, since the format didn't really give him time to embarrass himself with stoned teenager-level ruminations on technology. In fact, expectations being lower worked for me, along with the grim 80s British aesthetics and the appearance of the always awesome Alice Lowe from Dark Place as the therapist. Thanks for covering this. I didn't realize that was Alice Lowe from Dark Place. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Whoops. Missed that. I'd never seen her in anything else. Yeah. So, that's that makes sense. And also that pretty comports with like me watching it. Like, worse the more you think about it. Like, talking about that made it seem worse. When I was watching it, I was having a perfectly reasonable time.
Yeah.
During it. Like, the format does have some, give some allowances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No notes. Riley says, you wanted to hear from people in the online Black Mirror fandom when Bandersnatch released, and, well, that's me. I've been a Charlie Brooker fan dating back to Screenwipe and Dead Set. The shipping context to know is the Season 3 episode San Junipero, part of the first season that aired on Netflix and probably the best episode of the show, which was also a love story between a lesbian and bi woman. So yes, people will ship anything, but the show had drawn in a sizable fan base specifically for queer romance who were there when Bandersnatch launched. Some fans transferred their hatred from character to actor, but the harassment was largely people making fun of Will Poulter's appearance. People were calling him ugly, comparing him to Sid from Toy Story. And as I'm sure you're both aware, how you feel about negative responses on social media outweighs how you feel about the positive. As for my thoughts on Bandersnatch, I like it. Probably rank it around the middle of Black Mirror episodes. But my favorite thing about it is exploring the 1980s British gaming scene. The historical narrative of video games is dominated by the US and Japan. Even on my side of the Atlantic, I'll see people bring up the 1980s crash, seemingly unaware that it was an American phenomenon that didn't impact Europe, who are also familiar with the Atari 2600, but not the ZX Spectrum. And it's cool to see a work focus on the lives of bedroom coders.
Yeah, that is the coolest part of that. Mm-hmm. Agreed. Those thank you for the added context.
Yeah.
Those two specific bits of context we were asking for was one, I was surprised that people were shipping the two male leads in this, and the idea that it had a kind of a built-in queer audience who was looking for that makes sense. Yeah. And two, Will Poulter received harassment. We both learned about that, but did not know why.
Yeah.
And to have it be something that's stupid. Like.
Yeah, no, that's fucking dumb.
That sucks.
And I can totally understand why you wouldn't want to expose yourself to that. Fuck. I mean, actors already have like terrible body image problems. Like to have that just actively exacerbated by people being mean just to be mean. No, that's horrible.
It also just looks like a guy.
Yeah.
And have you seen the other male lead of that thing? That like absolutely see-through sweaty British kid? Like, I don't know, man. Will Poulter looks like he's eaten a vegetable in his life. On the curve, I think he's doing all right.
Yeah, yeah. And, if you're making fun of the, like, hair and, the hair and wardrobe on it, fine. That feels more about the time than about his appearance. But to, like, I don't know, to make it about the person or the face, that's just real small.
That's silly.
That's real small.
And finally, the sponsor of the episode, Cinder Elf, writes in, and they had a long response. We're not going to read the whole thing. There's a lot of stuff kind of generally about Black Mirror. We're going to talk about the specific things to this episode. They start with, "Hi guys, very happy with the episode. I have way too much to say about this, so I divided my thoughts into multiple sections. And we're going to read this third one because it's the most interesting and was not covered by anybody else today. I heard that part of why Bandersnatch was such a hard production was because they filmed each part in order as opposed to filming every variation of a scene in one go. This is to make it easier for the actors. Seems like stunt directing to me, but what do I know? I went back to a lot of podcasts and reviews at the time, and several of them were talking about this being the first step in an evolution of movies. They seemed to view it as more important than the evolutionary dead end it turned out to be. But some of them also talked about being excited to see what people could come up with once they moved past choice as a main story element. Thanks again for covering this. Maybe not the best game, but it made for some interesting discussion."
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for...
glad you like it.
Yeah.
Thank you for pushing us out of our comfort zone, sincerely.
Yeah. That's the operative part, right? Like moving past choice being the part of the narrative. We made that point in the episode too. It was like, okay, it's kind of like writing a script about how great paper and printers are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it is, you're kind of limited by that, and moving past that would be cool. I'm still a little skeptical of the potential of that. Like it is hard to know what the added other than novelty.
Yeah.
And if you want to do different perspectives on things, we already have like Rashomon and we have things like sliding doors. We can tell a story about different choices having been made.
Yeah.
Without having the actual audience make the choice. And you look at something like that, and like those stories tend not to be about the actual choice.
Yes.
About free will. I feel like I don't know what we're getting.
I can see very clearly what we're losing, and that's what makes it hard to look past it.
Yeah.
So I think it's something, this is a flame that the moth is going to, fly back into maybe once every like 15 to 20 years, kind of like 3D,
Yes.
Like it's a real similar like gee whiz technology that has kind of been this perennial thing that pops up cyclically after a certain period of time, I kind of see that. It's hard to predict the future, like maybe the next time it'll stick, but past performance, future results. Right.
Yeah. And again, I don't know what we're running towards. I don't know what we're pursuing to have happen other than the fact that it's a little bit neat.
Yeah. Moving on to responses about Scald against the Black Priory. Abram writes, Scald scratches so many of my RPG itches. It's not a save the world plot. It's less than 20 hours. Has interesting writing. I adore the dark fantasy, racing into Lovecraft tone of Scald. This is the same space as a D&D game I ran in college, but I couldn't have stuck that ending. This was my come down game from Baldur's Gate 3, and it was perfect.
Yeah. Man, that'd be a tough ending at the table. I've tried to do similar things, and
it never goes over well.
It goes over just fine, but it's not super fun. Yeah, agreed. And give me every 20-hour CRPG you can give me.
Yeah.
Dylan, and we do get a lot of Dylans. The earlier Dylan, you're right.
I think
there
it
are
might,
a lot of Dylans.
It might be the same Dylan on that one, though.
Some of them are the same Dylans, but some of them are different Dylans.
Oh, no, it was a different Dylan. It was a different Dylan.
We have access to last names. There are a lot of Dylans. Dylan says, I never heard of Scald before the episode announcement, and though I ended up really liking it, I was a little worried at the beginning. Shipwrecked on an island by a kraken, searching for a lost woman on Eldrick Island. The island has properties that seem to be strongly associated with time and memory. It's 2D Salt and Sanctuary. Salt and Sanctuary is 2D.
Yes.
Based on the way the game treated flashbacks in the beginning, I thought it was going to be playing more with memories being physical objects people in this world can interact with. I imagined I was literally interacting with the past during the mansion flashback, which was cemented in the first side quest with the kids coming out of the bricks as well. Sadly, this did not end up being correct, but I still had a great time with this despairing dark fantasy horror game and all its affectionate nods towards horror media, with the broodmother storing people in the walls like aliens getting me good in the end. I did eventually skip most battles, but the flavor was immaculate, and the bleakness of the ending still took me by surprise, even though there was only one way the story could end. Also, I have no mask is one of the hardest fucking lines in horror literature, and I was very happy to see it here. Something I was thinking about with the I have no mask thing is when I first saw that for a moment, I was like, oh, this is the obvious thing to do. Like, this is, and then I was like, no, that's just for us.
Yeah.
Like, in real, like a lot of people who got into this probably are not familiar with the King in Yellow, like the actual, that part of it other than just the name and the play itself, and probably are getting hit really hard by that.
Yeah.
It's
good
something,
on them. Something is always somebody's first time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And not wearing a mask. He's got a fucked up face. You can all that play the case of the guy with the fucked up face. King No Face is at it again. No Face Follies. Starring the Carcosa Players.
Finally, here we have Jeff who writes, I didn't have an NES growing up until the SNES was new, actually. I went to an expensive Catholic grade school, so the other kids would talk about the latest Nintendo games that they got for their birthdays and Christmas, and it was torture, because I was the poor kid. I did have a subscription to Nintendo Power, I guess because self-anguish was something younger me was into. So vicariously experiencing the games that I read about was as good as it got. I did, however, have a Commodore 64, or more precisely, my dad did. He was into the cracking scene, so he had bins and bins of unmarked floppy disks, mostly games, that I would sneak out and play when he was sleeping or at work. Since these were missing manuals and other documentation, this was often a confusing and frustrating experience. One game that I became obsessed with was one of the Ultimas. I'd read about and briefly played Dragon Quest at a friend's house. This was as close to that as I figured I'd get, so it was my mental focus for a couple of months. One thing you could do on a computer that you couldn't do on an NES was look at the raw code for a game if you knew the right commands. And using the Commodore magazines that my dad had, I figured out where my save was on the floppy. I experimented with boosting my stats and items and adjusting my karma score, which was almost as much fun as playing the game. Scald opened up a strong memory of hunching over the computer desk and typing seemingly magical words into a bright blue screen. These strange, nonsensical words made my game easier or harder, and it really did feel like magic. Like that old Ultima, having a built-in tab function in Scald added a layer of control over the game that the NES kids could never have. The developers have a clear love and appreciation for the old Commodore scene that you don't find very often. I don't think about the C64 very often now, but I'm strangely glad that I'm not alone in my nostalgia.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A piece of media or a game making you feel like you're not alone is one of the coolest things it can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone remembers the first time they got to get under the hood of something.
Yeah.
Like that is a universal, NES kids didn't have that through that actual coding, but like when people first, get to play with something like a save state editor
or a Game Shark,
Yeah, Game Shark or something like that, like, hex editor, something like that. Like that is a cool feeling.
Yeah.
The first person to do that, like that is fairly universal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for writing in. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah. What should they do if they have something to write in about next month? And what games are those?
Yeah. If you have things to say about next month's games, which are Hammerfight, INDIKA and Might and Magic 6, the Mandate of Heaven, you can write in. Go to duckfeed.tv/contact, click the Watch Out for Fireballs button, and write in by March the 15th. That is the deadline. The deadline is always the 15th of each month. If you have thoughts about multiple games, please separate them into multiple responses and keep them specific and concise.
Yeah. And if you have thoughts about April's games, please write in by April 15th. And we're announcing those now. The first week we're running our first, we threatened to do this a couple times a year perhaps. We're running a rerun, a rarity, because we're going to be going to Midwest Gaming Classic.
Yeah.
So rather than just doing double duty, since we're going to be traveling, we're running our episode on Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. We're wrapping up Real Lich Hours right now.
Not the show, the season.
Yes, thank you. Wrapping up the season, wrapping up Baldur's Gate 3. And that game, that was a cool episode that we did. That was a premium episode from several years ago. And it fits. So there's gonna be a new wrapper. Anything we can do to improve the sound, we will. But we're gonna kind of give that new context and release that episode. So enjoy that walk down memory lane or something that's new to you, if not.
Yeah. After that, as a Gary pick, we're doing Rygar, the NES game.
Yeah, a NES guy game that I've always liked. Kind of proto-Metroidvania, kickin' soundtrack.
Yeah,
Rygar. And then we're doing, as our premium episode, a sponsored episode, The Suffering.
Yeah. Might seem unusual. We did an Abject Suffering about that game. And we had a patron who wanted us to give it the full treatment.
Yeah, and I've always been curious about the game. I kind of missed the Suffering Condemned corridor. I just kind of missed. So I've always been a little bit curious.
It's interesting in the more like action focused horror game kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Excited. It'll be a fun month.
Yeah.
So if you have things to say about those games, please write in by April 15th. If not, if you want to hear those premium episodes, if you want to hear Might and Magic 6, our episode on Scald, our episode on The Suffering, you can do so by going to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv. $5 a month gets you those bonus episodes and all the previous ones as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, if you can't do that, you can leave us a rating or review. Tell your friends all of the stuff to help spread the word and raise the profile of the podcast. We do not advertise, or much like Disco Stew in that way.
Join us in thanking our producer, Gwen.
Thank you, Gwen.
We really appreciate her. And we'll see you next week.
We will.
Yeah. With Hammerfight.
Yes.
A certifiably weird game.